Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Maddles and today I have got a best of one game. It is not a ladder game, it is just a fun game. I can't remember where it's from either because, like a terrible person, I've had this just sitting in my replay folder of games to cast for what seems like an absolute eternity. I really want to say it's the Aces Team Story Cup. I think, maybe, perhaps. That'll do. Let's just say it's that, and it makes things really easy. But I do know who the two players are, and that makes things very exciting. So, up in the top left position, we've got the blue Zerg, who, although looks like a barcode, is actually Scarlett. And the opponent down in the bottom right, we have got the red Terran. It is Apocalypse. So, Scarlett v Apocalypse, a Terran versus Zerg, which I seem to have just somehow cast quite a few of in the last couple of days. Again, just pure chance that I just happened to be casting those. I went through a period where I was only casting TVPs, which was pretty entertaining, I must say, but I've got a secret love for ZvT and PvZ. I really enjoy them. I think they're just such a good matchup. Really quite dynamic and fun to watch, so that's always fun. But anything that's not a mirror matchup is always pretty cool. Although, having said that, TVT, I do quite like TVT. I like all the matchups, and this is actually quite a blessing, because if I didn't like a matchup as a caster, it would always mean that any time I cast it, I'd just be sitting there and slightly bored, which is never something you really want, unless, of course, you're playing it. Now, if I had to say matchups I don't like playing, ZvZ is so up there. It is so ridiculously stressful. If anyone follows me on Twitter, you will have noticed last week I was having a good little whine about how much I hate Zerg versus Zerg. And that is because of all of the matchups, that's the one I'm worst at. Like, I've played random quite a bit, and I just cannot cope at all with ZvZ. I don't know why. If it gets into the mid and late game, I'm fine, but Bling Bling Wars, just can't cope with it. No idea why. It's just one of those things that's really awkward and quite frustrating. But anyway, for the moment, in terms of openings, there was a 15 hatch. It was then a spawning pool, and then an extractor out of Scarlet. Meanwhile, for Apocalypse, he's just going straight up into a factory. So no Reaper out. He's just got the gas for the factory very early on. Probably going to be putting on quite a nice little bit of pressure. Well, definitely going to be putting on a nice little bit of pressure, which is fine as long as Scarlet identifies that this isn't down, and then really just pumps out a couple of Zerglings, potentially even a spine crawler if needed. But to be honest, it's not something you desperately need to worry about. It's just going to be a reactor Hellion opening, most likely. So, not super scary, but something that you do need to be aware of, so you can just get yourself in a position where you can defend it. But two queens on the way out, this should be good. A defensive spine may be warranted, especially when Scarlet comes in and sees this coming down, and this Overlord should be able to get a good little scout on it and get a really good little spot that, okay, something's not quite right there. Or at least, it's not an early command center if that factory's done so early. So, it's going to come in, we'll get a nice little scout out, we can see already the 4 Zerglings are there, sees that, yeah, straight away sees that landing, so knows there was a switch off coming, and therefore knows that the reactor's there. The expansion coming down straight after this for Apocalypse, so that's all fine. Scarlet now, with the two queens just popping out, the first inject going to be hitting. This is all looking really quite nice and good. Metabolic boost already on its way, and the Zergling's just going to be moving forward just to confirm whether that expansion's there or not, because this is actually a good tell. If you don't see this expansion, you've got to be worried about a starport. If you do see that down, then you're probably pretty safe knowing that it's just going to be a Hellion expand. So that's all good. Meanwhile, switch coming on after that. The command center is just on its way down. We've got a couple of additional Zerglings on their way, but there's now the starport, so it's delayed later than it would have been otherwise. A Widow Mine now on its way, so this kind of 2 Hellion pressure going to be followed up with Widow Mine drops, which is always fun. There's the defensive spine crawler as expected. The Queen's going to try and get a block off on the ram. Aren't quite going to be able to get there in time. That means the Hellions could have run up, but with only 2 of them there, it would have been a big commitment and not really going to be able to gain very much, because one would have died in the process to the Zerglings. Speed very nearly done for Scarlet here. More Marines coming out, more Widow Mines coming out, but nothing terrifying for the time being. Scarlet not really taking any losses at all, just 1 drone I think died, and that was... Nope, it was 2 Zerglings, not 1 drone, so that's fine. Everything looking good there for Scarlet. The spine crawler is going to come up as well, with the creep spread on its way, all looking good. Creep spread coming down from the main. 4 queens out on the field, sorry, 3 queens out on the field, that's all good. The second gas now coming down too. But it's these Widow Mines that can be a little pain. The Overlord is going to see that the starport is down, know that therefore medevac is on its way. No reactor or tech lab on there. That's how you know that it's going to be a medevac and not something like, say, a Banshee coming out super early. But this is actually okay for Scarlet, because Scarlet now can just well, defend this, make sure that a couple of units are kept up in the main in case the drop comes in there. And generally, he's going to be quite happy. The Speedlings now going to try and get a kill on these Hellions. May actually be able to do so if these Hellions aren't very, very careful, because if they stop even for a second, this round will go off. So this is Apocalypse just having to go into full retreat mode, back to the safety of these Widow Mines and Marines. Scarlett will be able to get back, though. Loses a single Zergling. The third defended by this Widow, or the third being denied by this Widow Mine at the moment. And that means once the lair's finished, an Observer will be forced to morph before that can be taken. But having said that, these rockets can get taken down. This third could also be taken fairly easily if Scarlett wants to do that. But for the moment, Scarlett just needs to defend against this, which is Hellions pushing in the natural, drop coming into the main most likely. And as long as you defend against that, you're not going to take too much damage. The third, not essential yet, because the natural was delayed by getting the factory out really quick. But Scarlett does need to look to take it in the near future, ideally. But there's the drop getting loaded up. Is gonna get perfectly spotted by these Zerglings. So now the reaction can come down pretty much on the mark here for Scarlett, who's already got Overlords in a great position to scout it all coming down. Scarlett also just happily up to Lair Tech, already starting on the Spire. So 2 bases up into Mutas, perfectly doable, especially when your opponent's gone for this slightly more aggressive opening. But this Medevac easily spotted, knows that there's no third base down, and would struggle to do too much more. One Zergling being sacrificed so this Widow Mine can get cleared out. But now the drop coming straight up in towards the main. So this main base is going to take a little bit of damage here. And yeah, it's, well, a couple of Zerglings went down, and I think an Overlord too. So not massive losses there for Scarlett, but if Scarlett is able to really come in for some counter aggression, that would be absolutely great. So if that does now come down, then it'll be good. Otherwise, this third has got to get secured relatively quickly. Mutalisks will be hitting the field fairly soon, and once those Mutalisks do come down, that is actually where drops really get shut out, and you're not going to be able to get good drops, especially with nice overall placement as Scarlett's got. Potentially this third could get dropped though, because there's not really any overall placement down on the left-hand side of the map, but not something that Scarlett is going to be super concerned about once these Mutalisks start hitting the field, because dropping with Mutalisks down will be a really potentially dangerous move there for Apocalypse. And Apocalypse, anyway, just sitting back, getting up a third command center, macroing really all the way. Stim on its way, just +1, no double engineering bay as of yet. Meanwhile for Scarlett, no evolution chambers either, so no upgrades really coming down there. Instead, just getting down the banelings, getting down the mutas at a really early point, rather than getting the upgrades out. So this opens up for a nice little timing push, where you can do some nice damage with obviously banelings, zerglings and mutalisks, especially against this sort of 10-11 minute push mark with +1 and stim that a lot of Terran players will always try and hit. But oh, Scarlett trying to get in a good position, hasn't got any banelings there at the moment. There's one zergling running in, that's going to mean Scarlett's got to retreat back because there's only 2 banelings on the field at the moment. Got to be a little bit careful. One Hellion gets sniped off there, no mutalisk went down in the process, so good trade for the Zerg at the moment. But Apocalypse, he's starting to move forward. This third base needs to stay up. If that goes down, Scarlett obviously will be getting a bit of a tough spot. 14 banelings are morphing. The mutas just going to poke, just going to prod, trying to delay this in order to get those banelings out. But if Apocalypse gets in before the banelings are in a good spot, it will be tough. Baneling speed is done. Already the Marines getting a good little spread here. But in come the banelings now. In come the mutalisks as well. And of course, the more you spread the Marines, the better the mutas and zerglings are going to be against them. Some more good hits. The medevac's trying to boost away, but they can only boost away for so long. The zerglings need to chase too, because otherwise Marines will get dropped out, and potentially we'll see a couple of mutalisks go down. But now the Marines getting picked off as they go to Widow Mines burrowing. Got to be careful there, Scarlett, because you don't want those to get big hits, and they do get some really nice connections there. Those one baneling gets actually 13 kills. Brilliant connection there for Apocalypse, but with the Overseer on its way in, that means that Scarlett now sees precisely what's coming down. That bunker gets instantly vaporized by those baneling hits, and there's not too much else there, and the baneling's now rolling straight in towards this mineral line. Some connections going down, but not massive hits yet. The missile turret is potentially going to be the threat. There is the connection that Scarlett would have wanted, and a good number more SCVs get taken out. 14 workers killed this game, 30 Zerglings coming back. The drone count for Scarlett only at 45. This third only being used for production at the moment because Scarlett smells blood, thinks she can come and end this, and very well could. The Marine count incredibly low for Apocalypse, desperately trying to get up the additional bunker and supply depot to recomplete this wall off, but already the worker count for Apocalypse down to 40 to 45 drones. But this aggression that is no doubt going to continue could be pretty tough. The Marines trying to get a couple of shots off, but in come the banelings. They are straight away going to start connecting. Punch straight through. Hellbats are going to be good though against this. The mutalisks need to focus those down fairly quickly. The Marines are, the banelings coming in towards the SCVs. Big detonations there. Massive numbers of workers killed. 28 down and still more are dying. There's very little in terms of defense here. The Mutaflock is incredibly low in number though, so that means pushing up this ramp could be a little bit tough unless more Banelings do come out. But the Zerglings and Mutalisks are going to be able to clean out the vast majority of these supply depots, and the medevacs have got to be careful about moving forward. The Zerglings are just going to clean these out, and Scarlett has now knocked Apocalypse down to just one base for the time being and can keep this pressure on, even going to knock out a good 300 resources there from those supply depots, and could even lead to a potential supply block if it's able to do it. But the Hellbats are going to try and shut that down. The Mutalisks trying to take those out as quickly as they can. The medevacs are going to be providing a lot of support, and with only 3 mutas there, it could be tough doing that. But another good Baning hit means that still, for the time being, this is not an army that Apocalypse is going to be able to threaten Scarlett with, and Scarlett getting up a 4th hatchery behind this, just making sure that economically staying really far ahead. The drone count up to 63 now, which means that a couple more can come down to the 3rd in order to fully saturate that. The upgrade's now only just getting started at like the 15-minute mark for Scarlett, but that means she's going to get +1/+1. Also got +1 flyer attack on its way, but the big thing is this 4th hatchery, because that is actually putting Scarlett 2 bases ahead, even with that 3rd orbital command there. The SCV count incredibly low, 25 to 74 drones. Economically, Scarlett's in a great spot, and that actually pushes a huge amount of pressure onto Apocalypse's side of the court, that he's got to make sure that he deals some damage, because otherwise Scarlett is just going to have no problem going complete macro mode. As we see, pathogen glands, hive all on the way, upgrades coming down, drone count looking comfortable. This drop has got to do some nice damage, this push out has got to do some nice damage, but all the while, Mutalisks are running about. Those mutas just don't want any drops coming down, but the drop is going to be able to come and hit into the 3rd base. That single Hellbat there is actually going to make it a lot more effective against Zerglings trying to defend. The drones even trying to delay it back, but in come the Mutalisks, and they are what are essential, because if you start using these Mutalisks to pick off the Hellbats, actually they do a nice job. But in the centre, we do have more Marines pushing forward. Zerglings on their way out. Scarlett droned really heavily there, and actually didn't leave much in terms of defense. No Banelings, but still, this is a very small force of Apocalypse, and after the resupply, well, Scarlett, if she pumps a good number of her lava into units, won't have a problem defending this. Up on 8 gases as well. The hive nearly finished. A macro hatch on its way. Greater Spire could come down. We could also potentially see the Ultralisk Cavern come down, and it is going to be the Ultra Cavern on its way. So that just means that with the Infestors that are now just starting to hit the field, a couple of good fungal growths, Ultras can close up the gap and really just om-nom their way through all of the infantry that Apocalypse could be trying to throw at the Zerg. Adrenal Glands also on its way. 3-2 upgrades coming down for infantry. Compare that up against, of course, 2-2 that's only just now getting started. That's an upgrade lead for the infantry of the Terran, but just sheer numbers and supply, Scarlett's in a good spot. The 3rd is now just secured for Apocalypse, but no mining occurring yet. The first SCV's just transferring down. But Scarlett has got to make sure that she keeps on the pressure, even though massive worker lead. You don't want a Terran player building up a sizable force. So just banking up couple of resources. The first Ultras have got to start coming down really quite soon, because that's when actually you'll start getting a really strong force. The Infestors now just on their way out too. The first Ultras on their way out. And all while these Ultras are on their way, actually Scarlett can get into a really comfortable spot. This is really now Scarlett's game to lose. And Apocalypse is doing a good job of coming back into this, just really making sure that all of the SCV cycles are hit, all of the bases are taken as quickly as they can be, and just trying to go for drops, because that's how you can really counteract an opponent who is getting ahead of you in supply, is to try and drop them, keep them back defending, giving you chance to get ahead. But it's these upgrades that are going to be really beneficial. 2-2 is about to kick in for Terran infantry. Compare that to 1-1 for the Zerg army. Just means that an upgrade advantage will allow a better cost-effective trade, but it's the Ultras that could cause the problem. 1 or 2 good fungal growths, and suddenly all of the infantry melts to the Ultralisks once they close up the distance, and the Banelings there too. So this is something that clearly Apocalypse does have to be cautious of, but Scarlett can't afford to just throw away Mutalisks. Got to make sure that they stay up and alive, and Overseer is going to get taken down. The mine count actually is only at 7, most of them being used defensively for the time being. So Scarlett just macroing up, getting more Ultras out. We see the first 3 are on their way through. The additional 3 on the way through. That's going to take us up to 6. The Infestor count only at 3 though, so not really committing heavily there, because it only takes 1 or 2 fungal growths on a clump of Marines to really make all of the difference, and that is what Scarlett is going to be trying to go for now. Couple of Widow Mines burrowing, a good number of them, all clumped up on top of each other, but of course Ultra's good against Widow Mines. In they come now. Where's the fungal growth? There we go, just what we want. The Widow Mines triggering on infested Terrans, which is always going to be a good little trade there. Second fungal growth coming down, but will not be able to kill the Widow Mines. A third would be required, and this is where things start getting really quite tense for Scarlett. Only 1 more fungal growth remains as far as I'm aware. And if that doesn't go down fairly soon, then actually, oh no, sorry, there are 2 just about to come back out, and that's where things are going to get really important. Of course, the Widow Mines, no clue where they are for the time being, because the Overseers, not with the army. Oh, and an Infestor goes down. It was one of the high energy Infestors too, went down to that Widow Mine. You've got to be so careful here. Fungal Growth hitting a couple more Widow Mines there will be able to kill a good number of them, and so that makes things a little bit safer. The Ultralisk count also getting higher up. Meanwhile, Apocalypse just trying to get into the best defensive position he can, going for the drop as well up on the right hand side. But this third, if the third goes down, well, that is where Scarlett can just win the game, because the economical position will be so great. And actually coming from the side, this wasn't really expected by Apocalypse, having to reposition his entire army, but Scarlett with so many Ultralisks, got to just make sure that the Widow Mines don't get good connections on the Banelings, and then it'll be fine. But the Banelings are starting to move forward, not even a need for the fungal growths there. The Banelings get great connections, and there is the GG. Well played, Scarlett. Just from that initial aggression, getting in such a beautiful position and taking that game quite convincingly. So I hope you all enjoyed that cast. If you did, make sure you like the video, leave a cool comment, and of course subscribe. And I'll catch each and every one of you tomorrow when I get another new game up. I'll see you then. Bye for now.